We tend to treat courage like it's a single thing, that split-second decision to run toward gunfire while everyone else runs away. But the military has long recognized that there are actually two distinct types of courage, and confusing them has destroyed more careers than enemy fire ever has. The philosopher Plato tried to define courage in his dialogue Laches, and after about 30 pages of arguing, the characters give up and admit they have no idea what they're talking about, which, for a philosophy text, is actually a pretty honest result. Today, we have a better handle on it. We know that the courage required to jump on a grenade is different from the courage required to testify against a corrupt superior. One involves the fear of death. The other involves the fear of being professionally ostracized, which, depending on your office culture, might actually be scarier. So let's look at physical courage and moral courage, why we need both, and why history suggests most of us are heavily overinvested in the former. First, physical courage. This is the one we put on posters, the Army Rangers at Pointe du Hoc in 1944, scaling a 100-foot cliff under machine gun fire because someone in the planning room decided that was the sensible option. Physical courage is the ability to act despite the very real possibility that your body is about to be violently rearranged. The philosopher Aristotle called it the mean between cowardice and recklessness. Cowardice is feeling too much fear. Recklessness is feeling none at all, which isn't bravery, it's just a defective survival instinct. The physically courageous person feels the fear and does the thing anyway. John Wayne, who never served but made a career pretending he had, put it this way: courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. It's a cowboy line, but it captures the idea. Physical courage is relatively straightforward. You either have it in the moment or you don't, and if you don't, well, the consequences are immediate and obvious. But then there's moral courage, and moral courage is trickier. Consider Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson in March of 1968. Thompson was flying a helicopter over the Vietnamese village of My Lai when he saw American soldiers killing civilians, old men, women, children, hundreds of them. He landed his helicopter between the American troops and the fleeing villagers, ordered his gunner to train his weapons on the Americans if necessary, and personally pulled civilians out of a ditch. He then reported what he had seen. This required no physical courage. He wasn't in danger from the enemy, but it required immense moral courage, because, well, he was turning on his own. The soldiers committing the atrocity were his countrymen. His superiors had sanctioned the operation. The easy path was to look away and file a bland report. The morally courageous path was to land the helicopter. Moral courage, as the Air Force defines it, is the ability to do what is right despite the risk of alienation, professional retaliation, or damage to your career. Physical courage, fears the bullet. Moral courage, on the other hand, fears the cold shoulder. And honestly, for most of us, most of the time, the cold shoulder is a more present threat. John McCain understood both kinds of courage. As a prisoner of war in the Hanoi Hilton, he endured years of torture. That's physical courage. But when his captors offered him early release, a propaganda gift they desperately wanted, he refused. He refused because the code of conduct said prisoners would be released in the order they were captured. If he left early, he would be abandoning men who had been there longer. He chose to stay and continue being tortured. That's moral courage. The Prussian military theorist Karl von Clausewitz defined it as courage before responsibility. It's really about the willingness to bear the weight of a decision that has no clear right answer. Mark Twain once observed that physical courage is common in the world, but moral courage is rare. And, he wasn't wrong. History is full of people who could face a machine gun but couldn't face the disapproval of their peers. The explosive ordnance disposal technician who walks toward a bomb has physical courage. The accountant who refuses to cook the books for his boss has moral courage. One gets a medal, the other gets a reputation as, well, difficult to work with. There's an old story from the Civil War printed way back in 1888 about two soldiers charging up a hill. One turns to the other and says, "You're as pale as a sheet. I believe you're afraid." The other replies, "Yes, I am, and if you were half as afraid as I am, you'd have run away long ago." That soldier charging up the hill had physical courage, but the men who truly tested themselves were the ones who, earlier that same week, had crawled into a long tunnel with a sputtering fuse, knowing the mine could explode at any second, just to fix the splice and save the attack. That's not just physical courage, that's moral courage in a physical situation. The willingness to take responsibility for a decision that might vaporize you, with no one watching, no crowd to cheer you on. So, why does this distinction matter today? Well, it's because, honestly, most of us will never be asked to charge a machine gun. But, many of us will be asked to sign something questionable, or maybe look the other way, or just keep our mouths shut when someone really needs to speak up. The military teaches both types of courage because frankly, it needs both. The warrior ethos demands physical courage to do what is asked, even when things are uncertain, but it also demands moral courage, to hold yourself to a higher standard, even when no one is holding a gun to your head. Aristotle believed that courage is, well, a habit. You become brave by doing brave acts, starting small, like resisting peer pressure, telling the truth when a lie would be easier, or just giving an honest day's work. The bomb disposal technician doesn't become courageous at the moment he picks up the wire cutters. He becomes courageous through 1,000 small decisions long before that day. Hey, if you like your history deep and your definitions properly clarified, go ahead and subscribe to War Machiner and share this with someone who needs to know that courage isn't just about what you do under fire. It's about what you do when the fire is coming from your own side.